First order of business is agenda changes. Do we have any suggestions for changes or reordering?
I know of none at this point, any changes.
Okay, and right now I was trying to talk to Martha or any of my committee members. I have prepared some chair remarks, so I don't have my agenda. I believe the chair report is next, so I'm going to go there and then I'll get my agenda up after. Pardon me as I look down to read, but I'm trying to be succinct and just read my opening remarks in a timely manner. Good morning, everyone. As chair, it is my goal to lead this committee in the decision-making processes regarding school policy and budgets. At no time in my experience as a member has this duty loomed so large. As we negotiate our way along this ever-changing landscape of information, guidance, and emotion, I will attempt to steady our course. I would like to impress upon us at the outset of this meeting the importance of two critical areas of information. One, community spread data, not only in Wellfleet, but Barnstable County as well. Understanding our risk levels will help us as we move forward in making the decisions that affect our students and staff members. Number two, feedback from our community. We need to keep at the forefront of our minds what Wellfleet families are voicing. Our decisions may be based on a majority of voices, but our task is far greater. We will continue to engage with families who have specific concerns so that we can provide safe and solid educational opportunities for all. These are trying times. I would like to publicly recognize Mary Beth Rodman, Ann Teft, and all involved in managing and providing the forums. Setting an exemplar for communication, emails full of questions and concerns were answered on both Saturday and Sunday of this past weekend. I could not let their efforts go unnoticed. Our agenda includes opportunities for citizens and members to speak. We also have priority business to attend to. In order to allow each person to speak, I will be facilitating our 2-minute time limit. All ideas, concerns, and questions will be recorded, but not necessarily discussed during this time. I thank you for your patience with this process, and I will work hard to lead us through these difficult times. Okay, now I'm going to go to my agenda, and I believe it is member speak next. Is that correct? While I pull it up? Okay,
Yes.
do members wish to speak at this time?
Yes.
Okay, Jill. Martha will be next. Martha, I saw you talking, but you need to be ready. Okay, good. Jill, then Martha.
I would like to recognize and thank the communication we got from kindergarten teachers that spoke to concerns and suggestions. And Betsy, thank you for your wonderful intro to this meeting. It really is outstanding, and hard times and taking into consideration all the variables. Okay, Martha.
Well, I do, again, thank you, Jill, for saying that. I was about to say both of those things. Thank you, Betsy. Also, thank you to the administration for making so many efforts to be in touch with stakeholders and the community and, of course, our families during this process. In that light, I do want to underscore the letter that we received last night on the school committee and the document from, the school, oh boy, the school committee received last night from the kindergarten teachers about a way to look at the reopening of the kindergartens this year. that seems to make an awful lot of sense for that very special age group. And I do hope that the administration does find a way to respond and take that under consideration as something that is worthwhile looking at and considering.
Thank you, Martha. Any other members?
I would.
Laura?
And I get, I mean, at first, I just want to again thank you all. I mean, the hours that you're putting in administration is just remarkable. And thank you. Getting emails at 3 a.m. Is mind-boggling, but appreciate it and just thank you for that. And I've sent emails and questions, but again, I just want to reiterate the feedback I am getting from parents. It is to look at the hybrid option. If for kindergarten, now that we have that letter, but even for the elementaries. And I understand the answers we've been given. I fully understand that the surveys came back, and that was what was, 82% of families wanted in-person learning, and I get that. I'm one of those. But things have changed, and as you know, we keep saying things change every day, and I just think to at least be able to talk about if there's a possibility to have a hybrid option. I don't know how we talk about it. I don't know how to do it or if there's time or what, but I know it is a concern of parents right now. So I just kind of want to put that out there. And also another thing that has been concerned of parents, I've been getting questions on is the outdoor classroom. And if there's actually plans for that, are there going to be things like tents and setup, things like that? And as well with that, is there, will the classroom teacher be responsible for remote learning and the in-person class? And will that impact going outside if they're remoting in with students, but then they have to go outside with the class? Is that going to be an impact? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So those are kind of things that I'm hearing and concerns I just wanted to bring up at this point.
Excellent. And that's exactly, Laura, what we need to do is be able to surface those concerns. I know I've written them down, and I'm sure Anne, is keeping meticulous notes. It's not that we don't want to address and jump in to discuss them right now, but we just have to, you know what I mean? Like it may come up, but it get it on the record. So I appreciate your efforts with that.
Sure.
And Jan, do you have any members speak? You are muted, so make sure to just.
Yeah. I guess I have a little contrarian kind of situation here. In view of the fact that our task force has worked so very hard and responded to everything that they heard from parents up to the point when they made a presentation. I find all these, I'm going to call them minor questions, really off the point. We admire, respect, have confidence in our administrators. And I think at a certain point, you can have everything nailed down. That doesn't mean you won't properly respond when a situation arises. But to micromanage and suddenly as a school committee start dictating many things rather than saying the overall plan is something we can live with and work with, I think is a mistake.
Okay. And so thank you for your comments, everyone. I'm going to move on to citizen speak at this point, and I'm going to look at my participant list. I have 13 participants, so but I can't see everybody. So if you wish to say something, you could raise your hand, and maybe other people could help me notice, but I'll try to scan. Is there any citizen who is on the Zoom right now wishing to speak? And I see Ryan Curley's hands up. So Ryan, do you want to unmute and we'll hear from you? He's your select board, correct?
Yes, but this is a question from me personally and not from the board, just to be clear.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm wondering about internet access for some families. There are certain areas in town without access to Comcast broadband, and with the school plans opening, or the plans of the school opening is the parents have the choice of remote learning, but even the ones that are attending in-person classes, technology is an incredibly important role in those plans, and in the potential of any adaptations as situations may change. And I'm wondering if there's been any, or what the plan is in place to make sure that families without adequate internet access are served, so as not to put those kids at a disadvantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I see Mary Beth's hand up now. I was going to just inquire whether that would be something that was covered in your report. Okay, so then I think that question, we can answer it right now. Mary Beth, go right ahead.
Thank you, Ryan. That's a great question, and it is the school's responsibility to make sure that all of our families do have connectivity. We were able to triage that back in the spring. We had one family that had difficulty with it, and with my tenacious school nurse and a local Comcast worker, they were able to get that accomplished. So at this point in time, all of our families from the spring do have connectivity. But again, we as a school have to ensure that all families are still connected. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great. Scanning the participants now for any other raised hands. Okay. And does anybody notice anybody else like in their picture having their hand up or wanting to speak? Okay. Appreciate everybody's attendance today. It's great to have interest in what's going on in the committee. I'm going to move us along to our administrator reports, and we'll start with Mary Beth.
Good morning, everyone. As we speak, our playground structure is being taken down by DPW. Unfortunately, a young child around the age of 3 on Saturday, August 1st, came to our playground with the child's father, and she was walking up the wooden walkway, which is sort of like a little bridge, and one of the 2x4s had buckled, and the bolt to it must have rusted through. That had lifted as well, and the poor honey had fallen through, banging her chin. She didn't fall all the way through, and Dad called for the fire department. They came, they assessed. She did have some blood around her mouth. It looked as though the upper lip was injured. She did not need transport to the hospital. The fire department did a full patient assessment and provided first aid. So I met with the fire chief, the fire captain, Chief Hurley, and it was recommended that it's now time for the playground structure to come down, which I completely agree. Our plan was, of course, at the April meeting to have that on our capital improvement plan, and then I was going to take it down. So it is in process as we speak of coming down. And I want to thank Mr. McHugh for securing that area after the DPW initially had taken down parts of it so that nobody could access it. And Mr. McHugh did some securing of that equipment and put up additional signage. DPW did put caution tape around it. I had asked after we had gotten out of school in March that the police, keep going by continually to make sure that people weren't congregating up there. So I'm very grateful to everybody's response, and I'm just heartbroken that a child was injured on our playground. So that is coming down. I was going to also consider taking it down sooner rather than later to give us space for our outdoor classrooms that were talked about. We did purchase 10 by 12 canopy tents that can be erected by 1 or 2 people. And so this will provide us outdoor classrooms per se, would be able to fit under each of them 6 children. And I'll be working with my task force. I met with my staff yesterday, and I'll be meeting with staff again tonight at 6, that we will be able to work collaboratively in schedules so that if a teacher wanted to bring out 12 children, they would be able to sort of borrow one of the canopies from another classroom. I had received an email, and had a phone call with Fred McGee from the Finance Committee. And so they had some questions relative to our capital improvement plan. And then I was invited also to the Board of Selectmen meeting. And at that meeting, I knew that our playground project needed to be postponed. Not that the project or the playground wouldn't come down, just that the new playground would need to be postponed. It was pretty obvious that that wasn't going to happen in this coming year, so I was happy to remove that item. And also I was able to remove the $25,000 for the computer lab technology needs due to the Coronavirus CARES Act and the other technology grant that's available to us to be able to cover those costs. So we were looking for $25,000 in what we would want to do, again, for our outside classrooms, to make sure that, again, we have access points for outside, and that would cost roughly $23,000 to $25,000. So we're just waiting to hear that we were granted that entitlement money. Staff survey results for Wes, I just wanted to give you some highlights from that. And 29 West staff, or 74%, did complete the staff surveys. And the top 5 concerns of staff were safety, cleaning, class size, training, and PPE. As you heard in previous presentations of the district staff, 31 have stated they have a medical condition, and these individuals will seek guidance from their healthcare provider and from Carol Forgione, our HR director. On the parent survey results, they were due back by July 24th, and 65 of our families, 81%, had responded and indicated that they would be in favor of in-person learning. Of those that responded, their responses are as follows. In kindergarten, 10 parents were in favor of in-person. 1 of the 10 also supported hybrid. In grade 1, 10 parents were in support of in-person. Grade 2, 9 were in support of in-person, and 1 of those was also in support of remote learning. In grade 3, 12 were in favor of in-person, and 1 of those 12 were also in support of hybrid. In grade 4, 16 were in favor of in-person, and 1 of those 16 also supported hybrid. And in grade 5, 9 parents were in support of in-person. When the question was asked what went well with remote learning in the spring, the top answers from parents were the one-to-one instruction, small group instruction, our consistent schedule, predictability, and also for teachers to be flexible. What needs to change to make remote learning better? Parents' top choices were, or top answers were, one-to-one instruction, continue with more small groups, consistent schedules, active teaching, and student engagement. The last question that I wanted to highlight had asked to please list any other considerations that you believe the district should be thinking of as part of its planning process for the coming school year. Wellfleet had 2 responses to that. The first being, make sure siblings are scheduled together. Think about a schedule where one long class, maybe with an outdoor break, is taught each day for a certain cohort so that each kid ends up in school a few hours, more like a college schedule. Like one cohort could have ELA Monday from 9 to 11, math Tuesday, etc. Also consider grouping by town for bus consideration. Have all the Wellfleet kids in the same schedule and bused together. And the second response to that was, if schools go to hybrid to keep small groups, wouldn't Wellfleet and Eastham Elementary School already have small groups due to smaller population? Couldn't those 2 elementary schools be able to continue to go each day? So those are the reports I wanted to give you relative to staff and parent responses. And the last thing I wanted to report today is that our school choice student, the parent has withdrew the registration to Wellfleet and is going to have their child attend their neighborhood school for the fall.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Any questions for Mary Beth? Okay, Martha?
I just have a quick question. That child who is no longer going to be part of school choice is from what school, what district?
Eastham.
Okay, thank you.
The child attended our Montessori, the program that's in our school. And so originally the parent wanted the child to go with the friendship peer group that he or she had met in Montessori. But then in the end, they decided to just stay with Eastham.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Beth, this was not part of your report, but I have been hearing, are we being approached by parents who are moving to Wellfleet about enrollment?
Yes, we have been approached by approximately 6 families. Not all of them have registered yet. One family did register yesterday, and last night I got another inquiry from a family in Maryland. So we have families from California, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and New York, all interested in either moving to their summer place in Wellfleet or moving with family to Wellfleet for their children to attend a smaller cohort.
Thank you. So that's one family registered so far?
So far, one family has registered, yes.
Okay. Just as a side note, I just got a little message on my screen that says internet connection unstable. So Martha, be ready to take over if for some reason I disappear, please. Okay,
I have your back. Got your back.
Thank you. Mary Beth, is there anything else for us from you?
Not that I can think of. I'm
Okay.
hoping that with our forums that a lot of questions are being addressed. I do try to respond immediately to any of the email questions that come in, so thank you for that acknowledgement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're ready to hear from Tom, Superintendent's report.
So good morning, and thank you for all your efforts and working on this challenge that we have in terms of getting back to school. I think that I'll start by talking about the programs that we have going. We actually have a parent program going on right now. Last night we reached out with a hour-long question and answer program for our elementaries, and that was at 5:30, and we were maxed out at 100 people.
Wow.
And at 6:30 we did the middle school. We were maxed out at 100, and then we followed up at 730 with the high school, and they were maxed out at 100. So I think the interest in following what's happening has been phenomenal, and right from the very beginning, and people are engaged and willing to take their time to attend the opportunities to have some of their questions answered. And the survey responses have been outstanding. In the second survey that we're now watching going forward, I believe we're almost up to 800 responses at this point. And we believe when it's finished, we'll be very close to that 1,300 number that we saw in the first survey. The one piece that I would say is that in watching these documents, I thought after the first one that we potentially see a drop off in terms of the interest in coming back into the schools, and possibly some additional students going to remote learning. Although the survey isn't complete, we haven't seen that. Matter of fact, in 2 of the schools, the in-school model is actually rising. So I think that that's really important information, because when we put out surveys, that data is critical for us to begin to understand what families are thinking and guide us in terms of some of the decisions that we're making. I'd like to highlight 3 areas, and we actually were talking about these last night. I'm not sure who was on the show or not, but first one is about the distance issue. And as you know, as we started the summer season and we were getting guidance from the Commissioner of Education, they were talking about the distance for our students to be apart being at 3 to 6 feet. And we were told by the Commissioner that on the task force for the governor, there were a number of esteemed doctors from Boston hospitals working on this, and they were comfortable in recommending the 3 to 6 foot distance. He had told us we would be getting some additional information from this process, and to this point, the video that we showed the other night, the short clip, is all that we've received. And there's no question, I think someone in one of the boards, I'm sorry, I don't remember who, was absolutely right. It is outdated in terms of changing dynamics with the data. Beginning of this week, have sent a directive to all of our building administrators to go back into their spaces to identify if we can go to in the classrooms a 6 foot distance. And I plan today to get into some of the buildings to actually see these spaces, and I'm a visual learner, so I need to see this to understand some of the issues. But I can tell you within the 48 hours of this happening that 3 of our schools have indicated that they believe that they now can get to 6 feet. And I think that's a hot topic for parents in terms of that distance issue. And so I think we're going in the right direction, and I'm optimistic that we're going to be very, very close to that, if not all our schools able to do that going forward. The other piece that I want to once again speak on is ventilation. And Paul has been fantastic in terms of his participation with all of the heads of maintenance in meetings that we've had at central office. Paul, the other directors have been working on protocols relative to our cleaning procedures and our disinfectant procedures. And I want you to understand that when people say we want to know what your cleaning program is, you really have to look at it from that perspective. Cleaning involves soap and water, believe it or not, and it has proven to be very, very effective. And if we were to ask students to participate in doing some cleaning, it would only be in that situation with maybe a paper towel and a teacher having a spray bottle with some soapy water just to clean the surface of a desk, for instance. We will not have students be participating at any level with disinfectants. Okay, that's the responsibility of our custodians, and we have secured PPE, personal protection equipment, for our custodians, and we are looking to have a consistent program across all our schools, so that when one parent is talking about the cleaning program in one town, it is duplicated in the same way in all the other 6 schools. And so we think that's going to be helpful for parents to have a true picture of what's happening throughout the district, not just in one building. In terms of the disinfectants, it's interesting because there's no question there's less clutter in our classrooms as we open up in the fall. And across all of the schools, the custodians think their jobs will be easier, not having to work around so much material that we often find beginning to gather in classrooms. And that time will allow them during the school day to be on top of the disinfecting of doorknobs, spending more time in our bathroom cleaning and things like that. And that's a good sign. That's a good direction for us to go. We're also working on a spray system and a consistent spray system that in the evenings we'll be in a position where we will be spraying the disinfectant in the classrooms, which then attaches to the surfaces, and it has proven to be very, very positive and results, and it's time efficient that we can go through the entire buildings and accomplish that on a nightly basis. So we are going to make available for parents, if they have any questions about the products that we're using. Each product has a sheet and describing the material and anything that any chemicals that are involved in that. And we believe we need to be forthright, and any parents that want to see that could take a look at it so that they're comfortable knowing that we're doing this with safety in mind as well. We as a task force, we have continued to meet on a very regular basis. Yesterday was Mondays, Wednesdays, and sometimes Fridays. We typically meet for at least 8 to 9 hours as a group. And yesterday we stayed through and finished up those broadcasts with the parents, the question and answer sessions that I think we finished up 8:30, 9 o'clock last night. And so the task force has done a fantastic job, and we continue. We're now rolling out Mary Ellen Reid in some of these discussions because now parents are interested in knowing what are the procedures when a student does get sick. What are we doing in a certain situation if a student were to get the virus and things like this. This is a protocol that we know as the health procedures protocol. And we hope by the end of this week, we'll begin posting those on the websites of our various schools so that parents can see those, staff members can see those, and feel comfortable that we're on top of this situation. Mary Beth listed the 5 or 6 key points for teachers, and I think when I finished hearing that list this morning, I was really happy because we have plans for all of that. And the additional days that we have for training that the state, remember we're opening on September 16th, and in the world that we're living in right now, that seems like a lifetime away right now, quite honestly. And I know other people look at it as 3 or 4 weeks. We will train every staff member in the protocols that I'm talking about here with you right now. And that's going to be helpful for anybody working in the system to be comfortable with it. The other piece that I would share with you is that we are monitoring through Carol Forgione. situation with people with medical conditions that are working for us, and also those who particularly might be retiring. And I'm pleased to say we really don't have much activity of that nature in Wellfleet, but we are seeing a few retirements this week in some other buildings, and they're pretty typical in nature. I'm assuming, but I think I'm right on this, that they're probably at a point age-wise and experience-wise where they'll max out in terms of their benefits for retirement, and maybe have some type of medical situation that they really don't want to worry about through the school year, and so they're retiring at this point. The good news is that the hiring that we've done at this point district-wide, and believe it or not, we've had robust pools. And I think some of that is that we have not laid off people. We haven't rifted people. We haven't furloughed people. Our staff is intact, but that's not the case in a lot of communities in our state that have made those moves already. So I'm really excited by that, because we do have a few positions that we're filling now, and that's very, very good news for us. The other piece I'd tell you that is the next worry for me is busing, and making sure that we have in place enough seats going forward, whether it be we have to make one run on the route or 2 runs on the route to pick everyone up. The actual routes have been developed, and now we are in a model of working with Paul Hilton at the Collaborative. We have decided to move forward with the guidelines by the state relative to requiring assigned seats, masks by our students, and we're actually going to move forward with a large sticker that won't harm the bus seat, so that it identifies where you're supposed to sit. And envision that the first student picked up will go to the very back of the bus and would look at either seat. One seat will have the sticker, and we're going to train our kids to sit on the sticker and work our way all the way to the front. And the good news is enough to worry about in terms of teachers and having enough staff. Bus drivers are absolutely essential here. I understand only one of our drivers has decided not to come back. That's great news for us. Although you see signs by the central office about recruiting drivers, it takes almost 4 months to get your license in a bus situation. So we can't turn that around quickly if we have to find more drivers. And right now it seems to be in great shape, but we're watching that very, very closely. And I think that's at least a bit. I typically are in favor of taking some questions, so that I know that if there's something you would like to hear about, I at least address it here today for you. So I'll stop at this point.
Do we have any questions for Tom? Want to unmute yourself?
Hi, Tom, I just have one question, and that has come up with conversations with parents. Who does monitor and enforce the bus regulations for kids? Would it be the bus driver?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, Arthur. I'm not sure what we're all in about having monitors on buses on every run going forward. But I think it makes sense to have somebody on the bus at the beginning of the school year to get this organized and make sure that we train the kids in terms of how to do that. There's there's no doubt that the bus drivers in many cases have great relationships with the kids. I just think it's a lot to ask for our bus driver to get that solved on day one. And so I'll be looking at the possibility of how do we get people on buses, whether they be volunteers or in some cases staff. When I took the job, if you remember, I wrote every bus route to understand the routes I get back, once I do the run, I get back to the office and it's not a problem. So I'm looking at that model of how many people could be in a position to be able to do that for us and still be able to get to their school and also be somebody from our system working with the bus driver. So it hasn't been finalized, but it's got to be, I believe we're going to need some help on those buses at the start.
Anyone else with a question? Laura?
I have just a question, and the reason I ask this is because of bus. Is the after-school program still something that might happen? And again, I'm only asking that because of bus transportation, because parents wouldn't need that to go home. Is that?
So one of the pieces that I think I'm looking at from a system standpoint for all of our schools, and this is probably a poor term, but it makes my point, is I want to lock our buildings down. If kids are coming back in the buildings at some point, whenever that is, I want only those who have to be in the building be in the building. And that's going to be a change. I mean, we have friendly schools and we have great relationships with parents. And so to what degree do we lock that school down? I believe the way we should open the school year is in the tightest configuration we can make, because we can always let off and we can always add and we can always shift. But sometimes when you take the opposite approach, it's really hard to pull it back in. And so, and I think that would be comforting to parents if indeed we have kids back in the buildings, to know that we are very strict about anybody coming in. I had a parent ask me directly, so what happens if your copy machine breaks down and you got to get it fixed? That my answer was that the copy person coming to fix it isn't coming in during the school day. They can come in at 4:30, 5 o'clock when nobody's in the building other than our custodians or whatever that is. But that's the sort of lockdown that I'm talking about. And so I don't know. I'm going to have conversations with each of our schools because they play a dual role, and childcare is a real issue for a number of our parents. And that was a moving issue for us in terms of bringing this program in, and everybody has been so pleased with the success of that program. So, but that's the situation I have in all of our communities, and I'll be working on that going forward.
Okay, I see Mary Beth wanting to weigh in on that too. Mary Beth, and then Jill.
Thank you. If I may, one of the brainstorms that I was doing with my staff as well is, first of all, our childcare is a publicly funded one, so it falls under DESE. We have not received guidance from them yet. And if they do give the go-ahead, and depending on what the decision is, if we're doing childcare or not, we cannot do commingling of cohorts. So since children, our youngest children, must be met off the bus when they disembark at the end of the school day, they must be met by a parent or an adult, that I would think in our brainstorming experience is that we might potentially, with 3 staff members that we have for our after school program, that perhaps one would be overseeing K, one seeing grade 1, and one seeing grade 2. So that was sort of an initial brainstorming thought.
Thank you. Jill.
Being quite active in the early childhood field still, I know that a lot of programs have successfully either get a text from the parent that they're waiting outside and the child be escorted outside to mitigate people coming in and out. So that's been highly successful. Many early childhood programs are not having even the parents come into the physical space, but being met at the door.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, Jill. Thank you.
Good. Any other comments for Tom? I have one, and I'm toying with, should I bring it up, should I not? I don't really think it's anything we can solve together, but I think about it in my role as a teacher. We have all these guidelines and mask breaks and distancing, and yet mandated curriculum sequence to follow. And so, you know, I guess I'm sort of offering, like, at any time, if we need a school committee letter to DESE to relax any sort of accountability measures that may, you know, unintentionally sort of add stress to our teachers and then our students' lives. You know, obviously everybody's mind is shooting to MCAS, but I'm just even, like, you know, maybe picking priority content. And I know that's all part of the process, but I just see it all looking so beautiful on paper, but then that goes to the teacher, and the teacher is the one who puts that theory into practice. And as an instructional coach, I know that it doesn't always match up. And what we do is work collaboratively to figure out how best to enact it. So we've got outside learning, we've got mask breaks, we've got washing hand protocols. And then we have, like, oh, but we're still going to be learning math. And, you know, we have the SES. First thing is building relationships with teachers to students and students to students to get learning communities. And then it's the math standard, you know, allowing them to reach the expectations that are supposed to be met at the end of the year. So I just wanted to say that I would be happy to lead a charge if that ever were something that, you know, our committee felt like we needed to do, in writing a letter to DSE, just saying, you know, let's get real. And education does happen, even though, even without impending tests, or give the test, but forget about the accountability. So I just wanted to kind of say that. See Martha and Mary Beth. So I'll have Mary Beth. I think I saw your hand first, and then we'll have Martha. Mary Beth?
Thank you. Just well said. That was one of the angst when I met with my staff yesterday, was that, you know, we're already going from 180 days to 170 days. So reducing our 900 hours of instruction to 850. And then factoring in the length of time, especially our younger cohort of students, and depending on the number of students, the time that will be sort of gobbled up by hand hygiene, distancing, one-to-one bathroom breaks, things like that, that you could already hear and feel the angst of people that we are going to do our jobs, but we might not be able to hit all of the standards. So I think it's critical that our subject coordinators, in conjunction with central office, perhaps Keith Golly, the assistant superintendent, are choosing those power standards, as we call them, to make sure that those are absolutely hit. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Martha, something to add?
Yes, I just wanted to offer any help in drafting that letter if we do decide to draft a letter and send it to DESE. I'm happy to help you with, and if it needs to be put to a motion, I so move.
Jill?
This is where the mask organization would be good too, you know, coming from them, you know, that have many, many, many voices. So, I mean, we can initiate it, but it's definitely something I feel would be great to join with the Massachusetts Association of School Committees and Superintendents. Would have a lot of oomph.
Thank you. Okay. Let's look back at the agenda, and we are, thank you, Beth, for being so very patient. I had really thought about moving you up in the agenda, but I also felt it was really important for you to hear, and I thought you might even want to hear. We are now at the Montessori school requests, and we're going to start with school calendar. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you. And I know as we begin our reopening process with our licensor, there's really two people that, two things that we need to do as the Wellfleet Montessori School is to follow the district as well as follow our EEC licensor regulations. So there's like two parties that we want to really make sure that we're following. So thank you for that. We would really like to just know, we have always kind of followed your calendar, and we just want to make sure that we understand if we can, say we have children that want to come 5 days, if you guys are implementing like a 3-day program or something where you're doing at-home learning, that we can have those children there those 5 days. So it's just a matter of like hearing what you guys have to say about whether or not you feel like we should take that same break if you guys are breaking to clean or whatever, or you feel like we are isolated enough and we have our licensor safety and protocols that we're going to follow as well. How much you want us to overlap is basically my question.
Oh,
Okay, so committee members, does anyone have questions for Beth or Mary Beth on the school calendar request? I just want to clarify what I think I'm hearing is that preschool is wanting to stay with the district calendar and the way we operate. However, in the event that there is a move towards a hybrid approach, right now, this committee has submitted, has approved, again, it was a 3-2 vote, so it's not like we're unanimous, but we did approve to submit the plan for in-person learning 5 days a week. However, we did that motion with an understanding that based on data feedback, that may change. So right now we are sort of committed and taking those planning steps until we are guided in another direction by community spread data or incredible outcry from our Wellfleet families. So with that said, I think what I hear you saying is that in the event we change, what is our feeling about having you guys not change, that you would stay the 5 days for your students? So any members want to weigh in on that first, and then we'll go to either Mary Beth or Tom if they have something. Okay, Martha, you want to unmute? Great.
Yeah, I am with Tom in wanting to open in the tightest way possible. And my sense is if things changed so that we would have to move to a hybrid or even total remote learning, it would make sense for us in many ways to ask the Montessori school to follow suit, if for no other reason than consistency in the school community.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Martha. Does anyone else want to weigh in? Mary Beth?
I agree with Martha. We're trying to be consistent with all of our elementary schools, and I think any of our programs within our schools should follow the lead of the schools or the superintendent's decision for that consistency.
Okay. Great.
And it would certainly help with if we need to do contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would support that too with that consistency.
Great. Okay. Good to know. So we'll go ahead and follow all your calendars like we always have and stick to that. And then sorry, Beth, I just want to interrupt to ask, are we voting on this or not? Is this a voting? No, this is just a request. Thank you. Okay, Beth, sorry, continue. Okay, so then the next agenda of the item that we would like to discuss was the shade on the playground, because like you guys are trying to implement something on the playground, an outdoor classroom for us would need some sort of shade. And it sounds like you guys are putting up the 10 by 12 tents, and maybe that's something that we should look into. We've talked about putting up a shade sail, and stuff. So we would just like to see if we could have some sort of shade implemented in our playground that we would construct or put up.
Thank you. Any feedback from members on the preschool adding shade to their playgrounds? Okay, it doesn't look like we have any opposition to that. Mary Beth or Tom, do you want to weigh in?
So I would just add that I was involved with down here at the skating park. When I say down here, it's right out back of my window. It's really a cool park, and it's heavily used. They put a shade up with my permission, and I was a little bit surprised. It didn't give anywhere near as much shade as I thought it was going to. And so I don't know if you're familiar with it, or you know that I would suggest, if you haven't seen a sail shade program, it's down here. And maybe I think that what Mary Beth has suggested that we're doing makes a lot of sense for being able to take them down and put them back up in bad weather and all that other stuff. So
yeah, so I think that's what we'll probably do as well, is just follow that suit and just get one of those tents instead of the shade sail. That might be a great idea.
There's no question the sail is more attractive to look at. It's kind of cool, but we're trying to just
yeah,
keep
it might not be as functional.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and then the other thing we're going to do is just add some Rubbermaid shelving for outside in the playground. Those are very removable, and they will be secured to the fence and following all of our EEC playground regulations that we abide by. So everything, you know, that we can do to get outside and have our program, you know, entice families to come back.
Yeah. Okay, so any response to the rubber shelving? Mary Beth?
Wasn't for the rubber shelving, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let Beth know that I will forward to her the canopies that we ordered, and just to underscore that to meet that 6 feet of distancing, under one of those 10 by 12 canopies, it would fit 6 children.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how many children you would plan on going out for a learning experience, or it would fit, if the teacher is under, it would only fit 5 children. So I will send you that information.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Great. Any further response to our preschool requests? Okay, thank you so much, Beth. And again, I appreciate your patience in sitting through it, but we are considering you part of our team now. So
thank you so much.
We enjoy the relationship.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, Giovanna, who also has been very patient, and she's going to give us a little explanation of what the 1/12 budget. We were sort of interested in that. So thank you, Giovanna.
Thank you. Because we do not have an approved budget, the town is working off of a 1/12 budget. They've submitted paperwork to the town, to the state, indicating what expenses they typically incur during the summer months and throughout the year. And between the state and the town, they've come up with a number that they cannot exceed in spending on a monthly basis. And the school district falls under the town, so we are, you know, in that category. So between the school administration and the town finance, we're monitoring to ensure that we fall within those parameters. If the town exceeds the 1/12 amount that they've been allocated based upon what they've sent to the state, then they request a waiver to exceed that amount. But so far so good. Typically during the summer months, we don't expend a great deal of money. Most of it will start in the fall, and hopefully by that time the town will have an approved budget after the town meeting in September. And then everything will go back to normal, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any questions for Giovanna? Jan?
Giovanna, do we feel we have to amend the budget that's going to be before our town meeting in September to cover any changes? I mean, obviously the system is going to be different. So will we present the exact same budget that we submitted in the spring, or are we going to amend that?
Right now, we were all waiting with bated breath as to what the state's allotment of the Chapter 70 aid would be to the cities and towns and to the school districts. And we did get word the other week that everything will, the Chapter 70 aid will be level funded at the fiscal 20 level. So that was promising. So the town will receive whatever they received in fiscal 20, and the school departments will receive what they received in fiscal 20. So that is good news. That's all I know right now. Nothing else has come through from the state. I know in the region we're waiting about the transportation reimbursement, but we have to wait and see. These are extraordinary times, and information is slow in coming, and it's all based on what the state's revenues are, what they end the year in, what they anticipate fiscal 21. So it's a wait and see. But the Chapter 70 aid level funded at fiscal 20 rate was promising.
That helps, but just thinking in terms of transportation, aren't we going to need more money? Because whatever we do, if we hire people to be monitors, if we have to run extra bus runs because we can't fit all the kids on the first run, I mean, it just seems to me we're going to have additional expenses that won't be covered by a budget that we thought would be harmless and typical,
Right.
Do we do anything about that ahead of time, or do we just wait and see?
So if I could just add, I'm hopeful that we can get volunteer monitors at the beginning of the year it's not an overly complicated, because we don't have a huge amount of students coming on the buses. So that I'm planning to not have to spend any money on bus monitors. And we are going to make a push out to our parents to understand our busing situation with something along the lines, it isn't finished at this point, but that we have lost 65% of our capacity on our buses by the new state plan to keep everyone safe. And push, are you in a position where you can help us with being able to drop your child off and pick them up after school? We have heard from lots of parents that they're willing to do that for us if we just ask. And so that's two strategies, Jan, that we're going to bring forward on the busing piece early on.
That will help. Thank you.
Great. Anything else for Giovanna? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move. Thank you very much, Giovanna. We're going to move to our policies for review for a first reading. So we're looking to for a motion for a first read, or for a vote in support of the first read. I'm not sure how we say it. Sorry.
Well, that's good.
So we have three to consider: the issues for the pandemic, we have a remote learning policy, and we have face coverings. We can go one by one, or how the committee, did anybody have questions that they have about any of them? Martha, I see your hand up, so you can unmute and we'll go ahead.
Yes, I am absolutely fine with the first policy and the third policy. I had a question about the masks, and I noticed that they are not required during physical education classes. Does that mean they're not required during indoor physical education classes as well as outdoor physical education classes?
So we would take the stance that we're going to be trying to get outside as much as we can and be at least beyond that 10-foot situation without a mask. I think we're not going to necessarily, when kids are in their, let's say the gym, they're going to have to follow the guidelines that we have in buildings. And if we can't have that space because the gyms aren't anywhere near that big enough in some cases, then they're gonna have to wear a mask.
Then perhaps that should be revised in this policy, Betsy, is my thought. Thank you,
Okay,
Tom.
thank you. I'm not paying attention. I'm just looking at the policy while you're speaking. So you're thinking of that bullet that says additional face masks or covering will not be required when appropriate social distancing is enforced.
Yes, it actually
So-
says, hold on, I don't know if
So-
that's it. It's about physical education specifically.
Right, so it says, the frame above it says, they're not required when appropriate social distancing is enforced.
Okay,
If it's enforced during physical education, but if it's, so again, I think that gives us the out there that we don't have to make a revision. I think it's covered there.
perfect.
Agree,
And
Martha?
I had another question about masks, and that is unfortunately, or fortunately, I have neighbors who are both physicians and PhD and MDs at Columbia, and they are constantly talking about masks and the quality of masks. And I'm wondering if there's any standard, because it says that staff members and families should provide their own masks. Is there a standard in terms of safety for masks? I have a tube, for example, that goes over my face, but it's polyester. It's really thin. I wouldn't wear it inside for safety necessarily if I were close to people indoors. I'm concerned about that.
So we're starting to see a lot of research on the effectiveness of certain materials and products. Mary Ellen Reed, our lead nurse, is working on that for us. I can tell you, for instance, a bandana, which is popular with lots of, and I think it would probably be popular with kids. That's not approved because it opens up down at the bottom. So we're going to give some guidance out to families and staff and anybody else that would be in that mask situation. So we're learning more all the time about what's quality and what is garbage, and expect that to be followed.
Thank you.
Any members wanting, do you have anything else on those, Martha? Are you good? Okay. Anyone else wanting information about the policies? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve a first read of the 3 policies stated?
So moved.
And do we have a second? We'll take Martha as the second and Jill as the move, okay? So and we'll just do a roll call vote. I'm just gonna go in terms of how I see you on my screen. So Laura, how do you vote? Okay, yes for Laura. Jill?
Yes.
Jan?
Yes.
And Martha?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Betsy Pontius, yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. We are moving on to a summer parking update. Martha is going to lead this agenda item for us.
Yes. Muted again? No, I'm not. Okay. Yes, I spent some time on this and a little bit of frustration. I have lost the page that I wrote it on. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you have to write everything down. Okay, I first called the police department. Well, actually, I called the town first and had to leave a message to have somebody call me back. So while I was waiting for that call, I called the police department and spoke to the lieutenant, who knew nothing about any kind of situation between or any kind of agreement between the police department and the bus company for student, and that they said that they really didn't feel that there was any reason for the buses to be allowed to park there, and they would monitor the situation, and if there are buses parked at the school, they would ask them to leave, move on, park somewhere else. When I spoke to the town, it was Jean Mack who spoke to me And she said first that it was the town's responsibility, not the town's responsibility, it was Suzanne's responsibility to do something about the situation. And I explained that Suzanne had said, no, it was either the town or the police department. Jean agreed to look into it and get back to me. And she did. And she said that as far as she knew, she said she was the only one in the town building at the time. But as far as she knew, from what she could see from any kinds of documents that she had access to, there was no agreement with First Student and the town. Then I began to wonder whether that, actually Suzanne sent an email to me and said, is this town property that you're talking about or school property? And I have asked several people and nobody seems to have the answer to that. I'm not sure it matters, but I assume that if it's school property, it's also town property. I don't know how that's dealt with. So I have no answer to that, but just to be clear for everybody, I'm talking about the parking spots that are directly across from the school, bordering the baseball field, bordering the field out there, that I do know staff parks in and visitors park in, and you know, many of us do when visiting the school. So that's the report that I have at this point. I have no other information. I did drive by there once on the weekend and there were no buses at that point. I did not see any, but I'm hoping that maybe the police have made, oh, and I did call First Student. I'm sorry, I did call First Student, and that's on another page, it was a different day. That the woman I spoke to said as far as she knows, there's no agreement with the town, and that she would get back to me if she had heard anything, and she would speak to the bus drivers as well and ask them not to park there. Sorry, that's a key piece of information as well.
Okay,
That's
thank
what
you,
I have.
Martha.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding this topic? Jill?
I want to thank Martha for bringing it to our attention and doing all the research she did. It's personally, I feel it really frustrating, you know, after all the discussion we had concerning having a contract and then not having parking because of backing up the town and their caution in regard to how many people at beaches and the COVID spread. So I as well am not sure where we go from here, but on many levels, you know, we do need more information as far as our power, you know, this is within our jurisdiction or not, and if not, then whom? And also, you know, I pray that this pandemic will end sooner than later, but definitely we need to have our position and information for next summer as far as missed opportunities for making money, which was initially the one of the motivating factors, you know, money for the town.
Thank you, Jill. Jan?
I responded when Martha first brought this up and showed a picture that I thought that really was town property, not school property, although of course the town feels that the school is all part of their property. And the reason I thought that was because I remembered the parking map that Suzanne showed us that was part of our contract, and the parking that was allowed that would have brought us in the $5,000 was the teacher parking lot over to the side of the school and the circle, the half circle in front of the school. And that was where the buses were going to park and pay us money. It didn't include the parking places over by the ball field in that map and scheme. So I just thought they weren't really encroaching on what we had hoped to be a profit for us. So just my 2 cents.
And I'll just add to that. I mean, we were trying to partner with the town to solve a problem, which was these buses sort of just parking wherever they want. It happened to be in Dunkin' Donuts parking lot when we were first asked to be a partner in this initiative. But, you know, buses, if they did decide to all start parking there, you know, that's problematic for people who want to play on the ball field or, you know, whatever. Anyhow, I do appreciate Martha's looking into this, and I think, you know, as we move forward in the fall, I would like to resume negotiations. I think we took a stance of, we were also trying to support the town in not having it, especially for us, our visual, the optics of it not looking like we were encouraging more people to come and attend our beaches. I think that's one of the big reasons we wanted to just sort of hold off on the contract. So I would like us to sort of resume discussions whenever it's appropriate in that partnership of the town to it's a parking problem that the town is having. And if we can help it out and benefit in the process, then that's great. Okay. I'm going to move us on to reports and information. Jill, Cape Cod Collaborative, anything from you?
Yes, there was a meeting on Wednesday, August 5th. We received reports. The collaborative did have in-person summer school over the summer, and reports came in from the various administrators and a teacher that things went very, very well, which was a bit of a surprise in some ways. Whether it was students wearing masks. Of course, they do just have a half day, but still, I mean, this is a very special population. The collaborative will also be doing in-person learning next month. And just like us, they'll be starting a few days later, and there'll be more professional development days for teachers for training, and of course, the bus people. The leadership program that students were selected for did not happen this summer, but there is a big interest in, over the spring, once a week, the students that were already selected, so they don't feel like they really missed out, will be having a once a week courses. And then if everything goes, hopefully, they'll have a day where they'll meet in the spring at the the Mass Maritime School, and they'll have a closing ceremony and maybe an overnight. If people recall, this program is or was an overnight program for selected middle schoolers. The Waypoint site, the Select Board of Sandwich did vote to extend the lease through December 21st, so there's some security in that. And of course, as Tom alluded to, that transportation, each district, the collaborative is working with the various districts developing transportation, aiding in developing transportation plans, supporting safety for students and the transportation staff, and of course, rigorous training in cleaning and disinfecting buses, and health and wellness checks for people on buses perhaps, and definitely the drivers. And finally, well, a few more things. The collaborative has set up this virtual training for teachers that a lot of districts are taking advantage of, a lot of staff within districts are taking advantage of, called Modern Teacher. So over 450 staff people across the Cape are taking advantage of this virtual assistance on whether it's hybrid or whether it's totally remote, how they can have competency-based individual learning with their students as well as groups. So I had honestly never heard of it before, and I went online out of curiosity, and I was pretty impressed with this modern teacher site. And yeah, so those are the highlights of that last meeting.
Thank you, Jill. No report for preschool. I'm guessing there's no PTA liaison. I haven't been invited to a meeting. Strategic Plan Committee, Martha?
No report. We have not met.
Okay. And Substance Abuse Mental Health Task Force?
Yes, very tiny report, and that is that we have received a letter from the head of pupil services, student services, and she is eager to get going and to begin meetings.
Great.
Soon there will be a report. I do have a question for Jill.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Jill, I'm wondering if you could send us either email or some way the link to the site or the name of the site that you were talking about for teachers.
I don't have it. I just Googled modern teacher.
Thank you. Okay. I'll do that. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else? Great. Policy subcommittee. We did our business at today's meeting. We had met to, go through those policies and made a few, I think maybe one change, I don't know. Anyhow, so thank you for approving those for a first read, and we'll do our second read. We are actually, with our new Director of Technology, I believe we are going to begin to make progress on the one outstanding policy that we have not been able to approve, which is the staff technology policy, staff use. And we have a hotshot new director, I hear, who is just engaging and ready to sort of hit the areas where maybe we had places to improve. So I look forward to working with her. It's a woman, I believe. Yep. Okay. So that's my policy subcommittee report. Wellness. Do we have anything from wellness?
Well, not on the local level, but of course there's a tremendous amount going on in the region on the subject, and that's taking priority right now.
Thank you, Jan. And then future agenda items. So this is where I would like to hear from members. Jill, I see you waving.
All right. Well, my understanding is we're having a town meeting on Saturday, September 12th.
Right.
And we have a school committee meeting during that week on September 8th. I strongly recommend for us to put in the agenda our strategy on who's presenting and how at town meeting.
Okay.
And always it works to be concise and clear. And this is going to be interesting. I honestly don't know if I'm going to be at the town meeting because I've been pretty much still sheltering in place. So I don't know if I'm going to be there with a big group. I know that the seats are going to be spaced and whatnot. It's just information, but no matter what, I feel like we need to discuss strategies and who's presenting and what are they presenting at the meeting, at the town meeting.
Thank you. We will get that on the agenda for sure. Anybody else? Martha?
I've had a lot of coffee today. Can you tell? I can't help myself. I'm wondering, and this is really maybe as much for Tom and Mary Beth as for those of us on the committee, given that there is a possibility, I hope not, but there is a possibility that numbers will go up in Massachusetts and situations will change. I would just like to request that there's a way that we can, if we need to, throw in another meeting at the last minute. And it may have to be a joint school committee meeting or just a committee by committee meeting, series of meetings. But I'm hoping we can all be flexible and ready to drop what we need to should the occasion arise.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Martha. That's important and needed said. Laura, how are you feeling about future agenda items?
I think, I guess, and I don't know, again, I'm so new. I don't know what I'm doing, but something like the survey results, I mean, will that be given to us? Does that need to
Absolutely.
be an agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
That's pretty big in my mind, so.
Okay. And again, I think that just as a committee, we are definitely trying to serve the community of Wellfleet as best we can, and offering them, I think we kind of banded together so that we were giving out similar messages where, instead of perhaps, encouraging a petition, to encourage them to speak out in the forums, and even as easy as just getting those questions to that website if you couldn't make it to, because I just found the district so responsive. Of course, we will never please every single person, but what we can do, we can't get everybody what they want, but what we can do is work with our families who are not happy with whatever approach we end up taking, to address their concerns and work together to make it the best possible situation. So I really applaud our committee. I think we're very thoughtful. We know we don't have to agree, but we have very respectful discourse. And I think that makes us stronger. Agreeing all the time just kind of leaves things as they are. So, I appreciate every member's output, and whether you're new or whether you've been on for a while, I just think that's what makes this a very, very strong and stable committee. So I appreciate that. Okay, with anything else for future agenda items? Martha.
I do have something I am confused about, and all of the issues around the virus have certainly for me brought it to a point. I understand as committee members, we've been elected by the town, and for that reason, it's our first priority is to support our constituents. I do have a question, and it can't be answered now. I'm sure it could be a discussion, are we also responsible for speaking out and taking care of our staff in the same way that we take care of the parents? As a recovering elementary school teacher, that's something that I am interested in, and I don't want to overstep in that sense.
So clearly the safety of our teachers is paramount too, in terms of keeping everyone. I'm not really prepared to go deep into this, but I'm even looking at a testing program for our teachers going forward. But I'm working with a doctor out of Cape Cod Hospital right now, and I don't feel like I can put any information out there without his presence in terms of the expertise of the subject. So, but yeah, I think you're exactly right. Our staff is a critical piece as well.
Thank you.
And I think that you surfaced something pretty important there, Martha, in terms of our role. Are we, I think we can. I often, when I'm speaking on that, I put on my hat that I can't help. It's my hat about being an instructional coach is on. I understand the teacher's day. And I think if we are doing that we just call that out, that right now I might be saying something as a parent, or right now I might be saying something as a school committee member, or right now I'm saying something because of, Jill will say it because of her experience in preschool. And I think in that way that we can surface those concerns. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Kind of.
right. Okay, good. All right, so we will have approval of minutes. Does anybody have anything to, yes, Mary Beth, unmute.
It's a very minor addition, Anne. Let me get to the page. On page 2, very last sentence, If we could just say Mrs. Croson is using that for composting supplies. So just to add composting, please. Thank you.
Great. Any other revisions, additions to the minutes? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes as amended.
Jill, second.
Great, and all in favor? Okay, I see Jill Putnam, aye. I see Martha Gordon, aye. Jan, aye. Laura, aye. Myself, aye. Betsy Pontius. Okay. All right, who's taking Mort's role here?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Jan. Second?
Second, Jill. Oh.
You get to choose, Jan. Anne, you can choose Jill or Martha.
Give it to Martha.
All right, everybody. I appreciate so much the amazing communication on this team right here on the screen. You guys are all amazing. I hope you take time to do something for you. Don't forget that it's important to see a sunset or sit outside and listen to the birds, something, okay? And be present for it because you need that. All right.
Back at you, Betsy.
Yes.
Back at you.
Yes. So moved.
Okay. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Very much.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.